All right, so I'm here today with Zamaswazi Mfusi, founder of IndiLang. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you so much.
First question, Sama, what is IndiLang?
So IndiLang is an indigenous content platform. Basically, we are a platform where we collate and collect indigenous languages, indigenous information for the consumption of children.
Okay. How did you come up with that idea?
Wow. So the idea was birthed during my, stay-at-home job. I'll call it a job because being a stay-at-home mom is a job. And I was actually engaging with my daughter through social media and, exposing her to, songs, nursery rhymes on your YouTube channels and things like that. And that's when I actually saw that the content that was coming through was not actually speaking to her and depicting who she is as an African child, as a Zulu princess, because our background is Zulu. That's when I actually decided, as a mother, I need to do something that will actually create a platform for her to be able to see herself. And that's how then I came up with the idea of creating this kind of platform and starting my company called IndiLang, which the actual terms are an abbreviation of indigenous languages.
Okay.
Yes.
So you are at home with your daughter. You go on YouTube. You don't find the content that you think that she could connect with the most and give her this identity, I guess, also, right? Then how did you get started with setting it up and starting it?
So, it was actually quite interesting. So my husband is already in business. So a lot of the stuff that I learned about business is actually from him. So just being around him, I've picked up certain aspects around how to, navigate yourself to starting a business. And one of the key things for me was the content. Now, my mother is a teacher, and she has been writing books in her own right, books in Zulu, which also address the aspects of learning in terms of Zulu and for the early childhood development curriculum. So it was actually easy to start off in that aspect in terms of developing the content because she's there and she has the knowledge base in terms of accessing, even historical things around what is it that they used to teach us, even as kids, about our languages, about our culture and things like that. So we started from there, compiling the information from there. Then it was, what medium did we want to put it across? And my idea from the beginning was we need to be in the digitization space. So we needed to get into the animation space. And from there, we were able to connect with young African talent that is already been in the space of animation, of illustrations and things like that. And through a contact that I knew from my church, I was able to find someone who's an animator, find someone who's an illustrator. So it's never too far from your immediate group. You can just ask and people will actually refer you to the right people. And then also we also did songs, which then my brother is a producer, so he does music. So we're also able to tap into those kind of skills of people who actually do music to be able to do the songs compilation. So we didn't have to look far. It was literally within our reach and within our circles to be able to, connect with the right people, ask the right questions, and to be able to also view what work people have done. Because ultimately in the animation space, it's still quite new in South Africa. Unlike in other countries like Canada, your India, where it's far developed, So the talent still is quite young in that space. But we were able to actually find the right person and the right people to be able to depict and put the message across of what we are trying to actually paint as a good picture of what it is to be an African child, a beautiful Black African child. Yes.
Wow. So it's a family effort, I see. So
Oh, yes.
You get business skills from your husband. He helps you with that. Your mom brings on her knowledge from her books, her own books, and then you engage a bunch of other people with the skills to digitize that content.
Yes.
Let me ask you, how did you convince them to join you and to work for you? Because were they working for free, or did you pay them? Because I imagine animation, it takes quite some time to create it, right? And if you pay them, it will cost a lot of resources.
Yes.
So how did you go about that?
So, you know what, it's quite amazing that you even asked that question, because it's always about tapping into your immediate circle. So for instance, to create the songs, I have friends who are good at singing. So I asked them, you know what, I'm launching a pilot here around, indigenous languages. Would you be able to sing for me so that I can put the CD across? And once it picks up, then I'll be able to actually pay you. That's how I started with the songs. Then we had a little bit of savings between my mother and myself in terms of then hiring the skill sets to be able to do the animations. So at least we were able to pay off certain skills in terms of being able to put that pilot project across. But others were like, okay, I'm willing to help, because they know us, they are our friends, and they were able to be like, okay, I'm here to actually support your idea.
And they must have seen it as something important as well, and believe your vision, right?
Of course. I mean, I remember the one time when we actually did our first audition to see whether we could use kids to be able to sing the indigenous songs. It was so interesting because just people were just like, no, we want to come. Like our whole lounge was filled with kids and parents, because it was just an exciting project, because it's something that's unique. It's something that is a need, and everyone just comes on board and jumps on board to be able to support you.
Talent.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then you didn't the idea for you was to launch it as a business, if I'm correct, right?
Yes.
So how did you design the business model, and what is the business model of IndiLang now?
Okay, so when we launched the business, obviously we were still also in the elementary phases in as far as putting this kind of business together, you know. So I basically also utilize what I had experienced and been exposed to from a corporate perspective, where I worked in a manufacturing setup, where obviously when you're working in a manufacturing space, everything's pretty set up. You understand how you structure your business units so that you function to be able to produce your products. So I utilized those kind of skill sets from the manufacturing perspective in, first of all, doing the planning, acquiring all the certain skill sets to be able to perform different functions, so that we are able to then produce our products. I also then utilized like a simple process, if I can say that, to be able to understand how is it that you move from pre-production to production to, consumption, if I may put it as that in the reference of manufacturing. And those are the kind of structures that I put in place, having been exposed to that setup. And I also did a course through an institution called Emeritus, which looks at design thinking. And when you actually even evaluate how the design thinking process works out, those are the kind of tools then I put in place to be able to construct a model that works for our business. Of course, because you're still starting off and you're still putting your feet on the ground, it won't always work to almost like a cookie cutter kind of situation. You have to almost construct it to make sense for you. And it was also a learning curve, because then I understood, okay, what are the things that are impacting time? What are the aspects that are impacting quality? So you're evaluating all of these things as you go along the process. Like I'll give an example in terms of skills and resources that you use. Like we were utilizing young talent, but also working with young people is a challenge, because from their perspective, they don't have almost like the professionalism aspect and, meeting time obligations. They almost like want to be given free reign in terms of time. And you're like, no, I mean, if I'm paying you, you need to deliver on time and the right kind of quality. So you have to manage those kind of HR things within the concept of, trying to deliver your product at the right time and the right quality. And of course, we had like a launch date. We're like, okay, we need to get this thing out in September. And at that time, we had put September as a launch date because we wanted to align it with Heritage Day in South Africa, in celebration of our heritage. So all of these things that one has had exposure in has allowed us to be able to put that business model in place and to be able to tweak it, to be able to fit us in the creative space.
So it's been a lot of learning for you to understand, okay, how do we actually produce the content and get the product ready? Now let me ask, the product are CDs or DVDs or what are people buying and who is buying it in the end? Okay,
so our original concept was, okay, we want to get into the animation space, right? And as such, we wanted to produce animations in, your mainstream digital platforms. So whether it be like your YouTube streams, things like that. But what we encountered is that the platforms that were available for us to be able to actually put out our product were a little bit confining in terms of other cost structures, where you put your stuff and be able to actually have it consumed within a particular market, all of those things were a bit of a challenge, and the cost to be able to produce the animations themselves. So we did put out a pilot animation. Then we're like, okay, no, let's also do the songs. The songs were a little bit easier because obviously songs are consumed easily within the international market. And we actually utilized a platform called TuneCore. Now, TuneCore actually puts across like your music across your major digital platforms, from Google Play, iTunes, and Spotify. So it was easier for the music for us to put it through one platform, and it gets disseminated across the world. And as such, we were actually quite surprised by the audience that actually were listening to our music. From across the world. We've had people, yes, majority from South Africa, but from the US, from the UK, Germany. We had people as far as Nigeria, Kenya. So it was quite interesting, that kind of platform through which our music was able to be disseminated. Now, in terms of our teaser of our animation, we put it through a YouTube platform. So we could see that there's a lot of viewership as well. Also still within the local context, because we are still also working on our marketing model, which we hadn't perfected. We're still actually working on the developing a working model, a winning model for us to be able to actually disseminate our product. But along that journey as well, we saw that we actually need to have an app our own app through which everything that we actually produce is actually viewed through our own app. So we thought about those from a digitization perspective. Now, in terms of your CDs and your DVDs, that came about as a result of the fact that, you know, when you've got the bigger picture, sometimes you need to take it in smaller chunks. And we saw that the smaller chunks for us was producing the DVDs and the CDs and the books.
Okay.
Because although the world is going to the digitization space, there's still the consumer base that is still utilizing your CDs, utilizing your books. You know what I mean? So that's why we actually then said, let's also do that space, because there's still a market that you can actually impact by producing those kind of things. So we found that people were taking up to the CDs, but not so much the DVDs, because obviously people still want to be able to view through your social media and platforms. I'll tell you an example. There was a festival that we attended recently where we actually wanted to give out our DVDs, and people were literally like, sorry, do you have it in a different format? Because we don't do DVDs anymore. So it's things like that we have to be flexible to be able to understand that it's not all audience that still use DVDs. And in fact, if you think about the fact that we come from records and the phasing out in terms of technology of all these different things means that we need to adapt. But we shouldn't leave out that particular consumer that still requires the CD and the DVD and the book. So those are the platforms that we used.
Well, I find it interesting that you mentioned that, because in some sense, you know, starting a business based on DVDs and CDs is somewhat easier, because you sell this physical thing, you know, someone pays you for it. Many businesses have been built around it now that the industry changed, right? When you put your stuff on YouTube, I mean, you have to have significant amounts of viewers to actually make money from that advertisement, right? So if you don't sell something behind that, like an animation studio that produces animations for the government or someone else, right? It will be difficult to build that sustainable business case around it, unless you have like millions of viewers. Then it's also solved, right?
Oh yes, no, it's as you were saying, it's understanding where our target audience is, or our target market is. So like when we were building the business case around this, it was like, who exactly are we going to target right now? Who are we going to start off with? And when we looked at where it is that this product that we are producing is needed, it is more in your middle class. So your middle class for us is more on your tablets, on your phones, you know, downloading apps. So we were thinking in that space, but then we also thought what we are producing is going to fit in the early childhood development curriculum space. And so in that space, you've got schools. And schools, yes, some schools are still have moved and migrated to the digital space, but there are still certain schools that are still requiring books, that are still requiring CDs. And hence, even as we are refining our model, we were saying, okay, what we produce has different markets, but you know, you don't want to spread yourself thin, especially if you don't have enough resource to be able to, you know, as you're saying, grow into the millions of viewership. You need to find your quick wins so that at least you establish your base and actually get your footing in there, so that as you go around, you're like, okay, this is how I need to move around and find myself as I'm growing, because ultimately the goal is to grow, right? And that's how we saw ourselves saying, okay, we will be able to reach, as you're saying, when we found that our issue is the marketing model. Our marketing model was not even working so well in the social media space.
Yeah.
Because you've got so many digital marketing promotions now, because it's such a specialized skill anyway to even market into your international markets. So all of that actually plays a big role. Even if you are distributing CDs, the marketing aspect is still very important.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you are visible?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you are accessible? So there's certain aspects that we are still using the traditional methods in being able to, for instance, distribute, because it's still expensive. Even creating a distribution channel here in South Africa is expensive. That's why you find so many magazine publications shutting down, because distribution on its own is a massive amount of money that literally can take out of your revenues. So we just need to make sure that we set ourselves up in that space. And obviously you want to follow the path of least resistance, if I might put it that way, where you can literally just function much more easier than going against the tide, because even the physical distribution of your CDs and stuff like that, obviously we have to also align ourselves with where the world is going from an environmental perspective, right? We don't want to be contributing to the aspects around plastic and all of those things. That's why the digital space is such a big space. Everybody's playing in it, and so we need to be relevant in that case.
So that is where you're working on the app, and
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What has been your biggest learning on this journey so far?
Wow, the biggest learning. I've been learning all the way, right? Because obviously coming from an engineering base, I had no clue what animation was about. Like, I knew that, okay, my child watches animations, but now I have to teach myself. What is it? Even just the aspects around understanding 2D versus 3D. What are the implications of producing a 2D animated series? What are the implications from a cost perspective, from a resource perspective, from a time perspective? All of these things is a journey for me. And what has just been amazing for me is even being part of a course through the Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry here in Johannesburg, where they're actually focusing right now on the animation space. So they have actually joined forces with Animation SA to be able to offer us the exposure and the understanding of how to create animated series, animated films. So even that, for me, I'm still learning. Every day I'm learning. They take us through already reputable companies, animation studios that are already operating in that space and are so far advanced. And you start picking up, wow, okay, this is where I'm going. But it actually helps you to understand a little bit of a holistic picture of where you're going. I'm still learning about even the business side of things. Just managing people is a skill that you continually have to hone. So I'm learning that, how to extract the best from people. How you communicate so that a person can actually visualize what you are actually trying to put across. Because in just navigating through the storyboards, when we're creating the storyboards for our animation, like for our illustrator to actually get it, that this is the kind of nose that I want this child to have. This is the kind of ears and the eyes, you know what I mean? Just so that they create in their minds what I'm able to articulate. The communication skill is like on another level, Aspects around even how to manage our finances. you're learning because, like, I remember when I sat down with our accountant and she was like, you guys seem to be spending a lot. You know, when is it that you reach a point where you actually start, you know,
making the money
back, you know? That part is a learning journey. It's like, okay, then she sits us down and says, okay, this is how you need to now focus on making the money, you know? Even to the aspects around going around looking for funders. Yeah. Wow, you know, how to pitch to a funder. It's all of those things that you're learning. And for instance, through the Lionesses of Africa platform, we were being taught how to pitch to potential investors, to put money into your business. So all of that is a learning. I'm continuously learning. And I guess one of the fundamental things around this journey of entrepreneurship is to learn. Yeah. It's you, because every information is continuously evolving, and you continuously need to be able to keep yourself up to date and abreast with what is going on outside. Otherwise, you'll be left behind. Yeah. And so for me, it's a continuous journey. And the fact that I'm around my children, I'm learning even from them, because ultimately I'm doing this for them. Yeah. And I need to engage with them even on a continual basis to understand what is it that tickles them. You know, what is it? Because we are producing this for them. Yeah. So they are my consumer, and they are actually also teaching me what it is that I need to focus on, such that it makes sense for them and it's fun for them. Yeah. So the whole process for me is a continuous learning journey, and I don't think I'll stop learning and exposing myself to other opportunities where I can get to learn more. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Do you think this is something that, you know, is likely to be picked up by mainstream South African TV or maybe even radio, you know, for the songs?
Oh yes, definitely. In fact, through the engagements that I've had through the Johannesburg Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we are actually seeing that in the early childhood development space, there is a need to drive content, African content, in indigenous languages for our kids. So the space and the scope is wide, but the need is great. It's just that because of the nature of the space, like animation requires a lot of money. It's very capitally intensive. So like getting the right kind of funders to back this will actually take it to the next level. I mean, I've had the privilege to be actually engaged with other animators through this program, and the skill is there. There's so many young African talented artists that are there that are just waiting for the right kind of funders to actually back them to actually create series, feature film, you know, films that will actually be able to be taken both locally and internationally. And in fact, when one was coming from the recent Discop, which was taking over 3 days, you found that a lot of the companies are looking for African content. It is such a need that, like, it's like, as in yesterday, we should be producing this content as in yesterday. Yeah. It's just that we need the funding to be able to put it across, you know. So there's definitely a market, and in fact, I believe even there are measures that are actually being put in place to actually fund more Black producers to be able to actually put out more content.
Those are public measures by the government, funds to support local movies, etc.
The Gauteng Film Commission, for instance, is one of them. Yeah. They are definitely seeing, especially the animation space, that this is the field to play in, and especially in the kids content aspect, it is where we are supposed to be operating. And for me, I'm excited because I'm riding the wave just when it's taking off, especially in an African perspective. And when you see even the the interest from your likes of India, France, you know, where they're already advanced in the animation space. I mean, from a co-producing space, or even like them coming in to give us the skills, because obviously we're still building the skills base, and we need to get to that phase where we can produce the kind of quality that is internationally acceptable. So we need the skills. You know, we need the skills base. So even that is a funding aspect that is required, where people from that are already far ahead can come in, help our young, talented African artists develop specific skills so that we can put out the content, you know. So the scope is wide. The market is huge. It is really just for us to be able to get in there and launch ourselves. Yes.
How have your children reacted to the content you've produced so far?
Oh, wow. So my children absolutely love the content. So what was interesting was that when we first did the songs, my daughter actually is the one who's on the animation, and she's singing with my mother. So the first animation, the Zulu animation called Benye Benye Benye, is a Zulu animation, a Zulu nursery rhyme, and she sings. So she always been the inspiration behind this. And so when she started, you know, even singing the other songs in Venda, you know, when she started singing the other songs in Sutu, like it lights up my day, because I'm like, this is exactly what I'm trying to do for her. I'm trying to say, yes, you are Zulu, and I want you to be grounded and understand who you are as a Zulu girl, but also learn other cultures, learn about other languages, learn Venda, learn Xhosa, eventually learn Swahili, you know, go across the African continent and learn the richness of the different cultures that we have across the African continent. I mean, right now, my son now is also starting to pick up, you know, some songs, although he can't articulate words. But you can see in his actions and his movements, the way he sings some of the songs. There's something about our African songs that just makes you, you know, it creates that vibe that you want to dance and you want to celebrate. It's just in the nature of who we are as an African people, you know. Everything that is like African is rich. It's diverse, and it's just colorful. And that's what we want to depict for our children. And my children are already just like enjoying it. You know, they really, really enjoy it. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's a no-brainer for you, but can you go into it why you find it so important for young Africans to, you know, be grounded in their culture, you know, for your daughter to see herself as a young Zulu princess?
Yes. I'll give you an example of what happened. There was a day my daughter came from school, and she said to me, Mom, I don't like being brown. I like being pink. And it took me like, you know, I was shocked. I was like, this 5-year-old child is having such a perception. What's happening? And I asked her, why are you saying that, my daughter? And she's like, no, I don't like the color brown. I like the color pink. And even when she was painting her pictures, she would paint them pink. And for me, that actually took me back and said, no, I'm not doing enough as a parent to show her and celebrate this brown skin, and to make it relevant for her to see that actually, as this skin that you have, you are beautiful. You are a beautiful African child. It starts from there, because our children don't have, you know, images that celebrate being black, that celebrate our Africanness. Then they lose a sense of themselves, because they're like, the picture that is painted is that this pink is beautiful and this African is not beautiful. You know, I was so excited when Miss Universe was a South African, a black South African child. it's amazing. It's like, wow, you know, a black girl can do so much. You know, it opens up their mind to say, I can do much. I can do so much, you know. But because of the fact that we're living in this world that has always painted us in a negative image and to downplay who we are. And it's not that we don't celebrate other cultures, you know, and the Western way of doing things, but that's not who we are. If you're celebrating the Western way of doing things but do not know who you are, then it's a problem, because then you get lost, you know. If they understand, okay, who are Zulus? What is it that makes a Zulu person a Zulu person? Their traditional attire, their music, their food, the way we celebrate, those things are actually a part of who we are. And that's what we want to put across, that our children celebrate those things. And of course, with culture, there's also distorted elements, you know. There are the bad aspects of culture. Of course, we don't want them to learn those things, you know. We want them to learn and pick up the good things of who they are as African children. So for me, that's why it's so important. We cannot lose that, because it's very easy for instance, languages to die. So many languages have died because there's no galvanized effort to be able to preserve. There's no galvanized efforts to be able to, you know, put it on digital platforms. I mean, we need to get to that point to understand digitization is where we're going. So we need to utilize those kind of mediums to preserve. There are stories, for instance, our grandmothers, some of them have died with history, you know, valuable history that they've died with, that we haven't been able to really capture. Because why? It's always been word of mouth. Word of mouth is not sufficient anymore. We need to write it down. We need to, you know, capture it so that our children they know where they come from. You know, like, you know, when you go overseas, I remember when we went to France, people want to know about Mandela. You know, they want to know about who was Mandela. You know, they want to know about those iconic figures that come from South Africa. Surely, then we should also be able to teach our children so that they can come across and teach the world. It's because we don't want to embrace ourselves, and the world actually wants to come and learn. You know, they want to learn about this African culture. They want to learn about our diversity and this uniqueness. And we need to be proud of this and be able to, you know, present it and say, we are actually proud and we celebrate who we are. And the children are the ones that are going to pick it up. So if we don't make it an effort to pass it on to our children, then it will die. Yeah. It will die, and a very painful death. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I have 2 more questions. My first question would be, if you could partner with anyone right now and ask them for anything, who would you partner with and what would you ask them for? Okay,
so currently, we actually have had the opportunity to partner with someone, and it's someone who's in the animation space. Mm-hmm. So they've had they've built their rapport for over 20 years in the animation space. Mm-hmm. So that for us makes it so amazing as a business, because that's where we are going. And now we've actually brought in the right kind of person to be able to take us to the next level, because we want to produce more content now. So for us, that's already happened. Also, a good partnership would be an investor, you know, who will believe in what we believe in. Now, it's not just about putting money into a project. You can put in money in a project and just expect a return on investment. But we want person to understand why they are putting the money into this project, and to actually feel the passion behind why we are saying we are doing this. Mm-hmm. Because the money that you put in must create value through what you are seeing. You know, the content that we are producing, what we are actually envisaging, in fact, as a company, as IndiLang, is to collaborate across the African continent, mm-hmm. across the African diaspora, to get these stories, to get these songs, you know, to get to do the research. And that requires a lot of teams, a lot of the right kind of people in the right mind frame to align with the values of the business. So it's holistic, it's growing, it's a huge vision. And so that's why I was saying the right kind of investor would come in to be able to partner with us to understand where we are going, which is quite far.
Wow, yeah, it sounds like a big vision.
Oh no, it is very big.
My final question would be, what would be your advice to a young South African today?
Oh, wow. You know, for me, this journey of entrepreneurship has really opened up my mind. Mm-hmm. I feel like we as young South Africans have almost had this picture painted for us that you grow up, you listen to your parents, you go to school, you go to university, and you find a job. Mm-hmm. It's like we are now being confined in this space to be able to get a job. But that shouldn't be the ultimate call. It should be, you know, learn as much as you can and then go out there and express yourself. Learn how to take the talents that you have and create value out of that. Make money out of your talents. From a young age, if we as South Africans, young South Africans, learn how to, you know, become entrepreneurs from a young age, this whole South Africa can change. You know, we won't have the sense of self-entitlement. We won't have these kind of riots because people are just thinking about these jobs, you know, that come in today, go out tomorrow. Whereas if you utilize this creativity, this brain that you have to be able to open up opportunities for yourself and create opportunities for other people, which is what we are doing. We are creating the platform for young talent to come in and learn new skills and be able to take that talent and do other things for themselves. You know what I mean? So for me, it's that. The young African child right now needs to think outside the box and enter into a space where they can create value for themselves by being an entrepreneur, you know. Being in a career is fine. It's okay. But don't limit yourself. Mm-hmm. You've got so many talents. Explore those talents from a young age. Don't wait until you're 40. Don't wait until you're 50 to be like, okay, now I actually want to start a business. That sometimes is a bit too late because also the learnings along the journey of entrepreneurship are a lot because you won't always get it right. Sometimes you fail. But if you fail while you're still young, you can easily pick yourself up. Yeah. Unlike when you're older, when you're taking your pension and you're investing it into a business. And what happens if it fails? That's your life story written out, gone, you know? So, but when you're young, you can make these mistakes. You can move flexibly, you know, and not literally confine yourself within a specific framework or a specific industry. You can move around industries. Look at me. I'm moving from industry to industry because I want to create myself to be flexible to learn and utilize the talents that I have to be able to create the value, to be able to generate money for myself and for my children's children. So we are creating legacy businesses, but you must start young. You must start young.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.